Imagine two people get their first real paycheck on the exact same day. Same job, same salary, same city, same rent. One of them 10 years later owns a home, has zero debt, and sleeps easily at night. The other one is still living paycheck to paycheck, still stressed every time the phone buzzes with a bank notification, still telling themselves next year I'll finally get serious about money. Same income, same opportunities, completely different lives. So, what actually separated them? It wasn't luck. It wasn't a secret investment tip. It wasn't even how much they earned. It was a handful of quiet decisions, repeated over and over, that most people never think twice about. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what those decisions were, and more importantly, why almost nobody teaches them to you. Let's start with the biggest myth about money, the one that quietly ruins more beginners than any bad investment ever could. Most people believe that being good with money means being good at making money, get a higher salary, land a better job, start a side hustle, earn more, and everything else will sort itself out. It sounds logical. It's also one of the most expensive lies in personal finance. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. A huge number of people who earn a lot of money are still broke. Not because they don't make enough, but because their spending quietly grows every single time their income does. Psychologists call this lifestyle inflation, but you don't need the technical term to recognize it. You've probably lived it or watched someone live it. Someone gets a raise, and suddenly their old car feels not good enough. Someone gets a bonus, and instead of it building their future, it becomes a nicer apartment, a new phone, dinners out 3 times a week. The income goes up. The stress somehow stays exactly the same. Think about 2 friends who worked at the same company. One of them got promoted, and their salary jumped by a solid margin. Within a few months, they had upgraded their apartment, leased a nicer car, and started ordering food delivery almost every night. On paper, they were earning more than ever. In reality, they had less breathing room than before the promotion, because every extra dollar had already been assigned a new expense before it even landed in their account. The other friend, who stayed at a lower salary a while longer, kept living the same modest life and quietly put money aside every single month. A few years later, the first friend was still trading time for money just to keep up with their own lifestyle. The second friend had options. Same starting point, wildly different outcomes. Why does this happen to smart, capable people? It comes down to how our brains are wired. Your brain doesn't actually compare your life to some fixed, objective standard. It compares your life to what it just got used to. Psychologists call this your reference point. If you've been eating instant noodles for a year and then land a good job, a regular restaurant meal feels like luxury. But give that same person 2 more years at a higher income, and eating at that same restaurant starts to feel normal, even boring. The bar keeps moving. And because the bar keeps moving, more income alone can never make you feel financially secure. It just resets what enough means. This is why some people earning modest salaries build real wealth, while others earning triple that amount stay stuck. The difference was never really about the number on their paycheck. It was about the gap between what they earned and what they kept. And that gap is where the entire game of personal finance is actually played. So let's break this down step by step in the simplest way possible. Picture your income as water flowing into a bucket. Every time you get paid, water pours in. Every time you spend money, water leaks out through a hole in the bottom. Most beginners obsess over making the flow of water bigger. Earn more, earn more, earn more, and sure, that helps. But if the hole in your bucket keeps growing at the same speed as the water flowing in, you will never, ever fill that bucket. You could triple your income and still end up with nothing saved because your hole tripled right along with it. The people who actually build wealth understand something different. They focus first on patching the hole, not starving themselves, not obsessively cutting out every small pleasure, but simply making sure that as income rises, spending doesn't rise at the exact same pace. This single habit, keeping a gap between what comes in and what goes out, is the real starting point of every financial success story you've ever heard. Not a stock tip, not a business idea, just a gap, protected on purpose. Now here's where it gets interesting, because once you understand the gap, you have to understand what to actually do with it. And this is where most beginners make their second big mistake. They think saving money is the finish line. Put some money aside, feel good about it, done. But saving money and growing money are 2 completely different things, and confusing them is incredibly costly over time. Think about it this way. If you put money under your mattress, it doesn't grow. It doesn't shrink either, but it also doesn't do anything for you. Worse, because prices slowly rise every year, a concept called inflation. That same pile of money buys a little less each year that passes. Your money isn't just sitting still. It's quietly losing power while you're not looking. This is why simply saving isn't enough. Your money needs to be put to work. Here's a simple way to picture it. Imagine you plant a single seed in the ground. You don't just get one plant. If you let it grow, that plant produces more seeds. Those seeds grow into more plants. Given enough time, one seed can turn into an entire field. That's essentially what investing does with money. When you invest instead of just storing cash, your money doesn't just sit there. It earns a return, and then that return earns its own return. Year after year, the growth builds on top of itself. This snowball effect is often called compound growth, and it's less about timing the market perfectly and more about simply giving your money enough time to multiply on its own. The catch is that compounding needs one thing that beginners almost always underestimate: time. Someone who starts investing small amounts in their 20s will very often end up ahead of someone who starts investing much larger amounts in their 40s, simply because their money had more years to snowball. This is why the single most expensive financial mistake isn't picking the wrong investment. It's waiting. Now let's go deeper, because there's a psychological reason waiting feels so easy even when we know better. Our brains are wired to value rewards we can feel today far more than rewards we'll only see far in the future. This isn't a character flaw, it's biology. For most of human history, waiting for a future reward could get you killed. So our instincts evolved to grab immediate benefits and discount anything distant. That's exactly why spending $70 tonight feels so much more real than the idea of that same $70 turning into several $100s in 20 years. The future version of that money feels abstract, almost fake. The present version feels alive, immediate, real. This is the real battlefield of personal finance. It's not spreadsheets. It's not the stock market. It's the daily tug of war between your present self, who wants comfort and reward right now, and your future self, who is depending on the decisions you're making today. And here's the insight that changes everything once you truly understand it. Building wealth was never really about being a math genius or a market expert. It's about becoming someone who can consistently choose their future self, even when their present self is whispering just this once. The people who build lasting wealth aren't necessarily the smartest people in the room. They're the ones who made saving and investing automatic, so they didn't have to rely on willpower every single day. They removed the decision. They set up a system where a portion of every paycheck moves toward their future before they even get the chance to spend it. Not because they're superhuman, but because they know their present self can be persuasive, and they didn't want to fight that battle daily. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't wake up every morning and have a debate with yourself about whether it's worth the effort. You don't weigh the pros and cons. It's automatic, built into the rhythm of your day, so there's no decision left to make and no willpower required. The people who build wealth quietly turn saving and investing into that same kind of habit. It stops being a choice they have to win every day and becomes something that just happens in the background, whether they're feeling motivated or not, whether it's a good month or a hard one. This matters more than it sounds, because willpower is not a reliable resource. It's high after a good night's sleep and low after a stressful day. It's strong at the start of the month and weak by the end of it. If your financial future depends on you making the right choice every single day, forever, without fail, you are setting yourself up against your own biology. But if your financial future depends on a system you built once, during a moment of clarity, then a bad day, a tempting sale, or a stressful week can't quietly undo years of progress. So what should you actually take away from all of this? First, stop chasing a bigger income as the only solution. It helps, but without control over spending, more money simply means a bigger hole in the same leaky bucket. Second, protect the gap between what you earn and what you spend, even if that gap starts out small. That gap is the seed everything else grows from. Third, don't let your savings just sit there losing quiet value to inflation. Learn the basics of investing, even in the simplest way possible, so your money has the chance to work and multiply instead of just existing. Fourth, understand that time is doing most of the heavy lifting in wealth building. Starting small today will almost always beat starting big later, because compounding rewards patience far more than it rewards perfection. And finally, make your future a priority automatically. Don't rely on remembering to save or invest after spending. Flip the order. Set money aside first, then let yourself spend what's left. This one shift in order is often the difference between people who build wealth slowly but surely and people who intend to start next month for the next 20 years. None of this requires a finance degree. It doesn't require predicting the stock market or having some secret advantage. It requires understanding one simple truth that most people never sit down to think about. Wealth isn't built by the size of your paycheck. It's built by the size of the gap you protect and the amount of time you give that gap to grow. So here's the real question to sit with. If your income doubled tomorrow, would your life actually change 10 years from now? Or would your spending simply double right along with it, leaving you exactly where you started, just with nicer things? The people who understand the answer to that question are the ones who quietly, steadily build the kind of financial life everyone else says they wish they had. The habits are simple. They were never hidden. Most people just never stopped to notice them. Now you have.